Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of The Other Side of Addiction. I am your host, Al Richards. We got a really good show for you guys today. As I say every show, but it's true because they're all really good shows. Today, I'm going to be sitting down with our guest, Robert Twine, and we're going to be talking about his personal journey of recovery, the strength, and his determination and self-reflection it took for him to get to where he's at today. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to our guest today, Robert Twine. Robert, thank you so much for being here with us.
Hi, Al. Thank you so much. Yeah, it's a pleasure and an honor to be here. So thank you for inviting me. So today, I guess I'll tell a little bit about my story of my experience with growing up, leading into addiction, and some of my experiences of trying to find recovery throughout the years. That was I looked hard for a long time. So I'll start very early on. Whenever I was really young in elementary school, I didn't feel like I fit in. I was pretty overweight in elementary school and into middle school, and I remember having the name Robert was one of those names that if you're overweight, people have a lot of names that they call you. They call you Blobbert, they call you Slobbert, they call you Slobby, they call you Blobby. You get a lot of these names. So
Huh.
I felt really disconnected from my peers at a young age. I didn't feel like I fit in. And I remember this was probably about 10 years ago. I'm 44 now. So 34, I found an elementary school yearbook and I had all the faces scratched out of this yearbook except for me, one friend, and one teacher that I liked in the whole school. So that was a good picture of how I felt growing up. I felt like I didn't fit in. I felt like I didn't have a voice. I felt like people didn't listen to me. I didn't feel like I was important and always felt like somebody else knew something I didn't know. And I wish they'd let me in on the secret of what was going on. And I felt that way all up until about the age of 15. And when I was 15, that was the first time I ever drank. And when I drank, that was like when I drank, it allowed me to finally step into this way of, oh my goodness, I can be whoever I want to be with this stuff. Like I with that, whenever I took a drink, it allowed me to step into this power that I never had before until I did that. And I used other things as well. I used marijuana. That did the same thing. A lot of other things that I did. It was just that lifestyle. It allowed me to finally step into being somebody who took control of life and showed up in a way where I wasn't scared to say and do the things that I was always scared to say and do. I
So
felt
so
like I
Robert,
fit
let me
in.
pause you. Let me pause you for a
Yeah,
second.
sure.
What do you
Please.
think? What do you think caused you to be that way? I mean, alcohol, I know they call it liquid courage, right? A lot of people use it at the bar and they can't go up and
Right.
talk to another woman or male unless they have, you know, this alcohol in them. But I mean, have you been able to really whittle it down to know, okay, gosh, you just said you could be whoever you wanted to be with that stuff. I mean, why did you figure that out? How did you figure that out? If that makes sense.
Looking, that's that self-reflection when I look back at the past and see what really happened when I really, I've had a lot of years to be, and I'll get to that point where I started my recovery journey around 17.
Okay.
I had a little bit of time where I started to like look at, it's kind of like, okay, I started getting in some trouble, and that's a little bit down the road, and I'll get to that part of the story. But when I
Okay.
look back from, I've had a lot of years to really look at it from a more conscious perspective. Conscious is a good word because I was unconscious a lot because I had, this is something I want people to hear. I had carefree and careless mixed up. I thought careless was carefree, and there's a difference. When I was out there partying and doing my thing, I thought careless is the way, man. You just do whatever you want, whenever you want, however you want, and who cares what happens to the people around you. And to me, I realized that was careless. And that had a lot of repercussions. You know, as of my journey of recovery, I've started to uncover a truth. Life is like a cave. If you yell into the cave, I don't care about you, you're stupid, I'm getting mine, forget about you, life says back, uh, I don't care about you, you're stupid, I'm getting mine, you're no good. Like, it says back to us exactly what we say to it. However, and that's something I've learned through my years of studying how to not be miserable without using. That's basically what I've studied, is how can I be joyous without needing something to make me joyous? How do I step into the power of who I'm being? I
Yeah.
like be, do, have. I love this shirt. So, I went through that 15 to 17. I had consequences really quick. They took my license in Pennsylvania. I moved to Florida, got a fresh new license. I thought, this is cool. Man, they take my license in Pennsylvania. You can't do that now. So I moved to Florida. I got a brand new license with no points. I was like, this is cool. Yeah, I could do whatever I want. And then and I thought, the geographical cure, you've ever heard of that?
Uh-uh.
Yeah, you try to move somewhere else to cure your addiction. You like move
Okay.
away. Like, okay, well,
Oh, got it. Okay.
I'm gonna move to another state. That'll fix it. It's the people that I'm around, right? That's what I thought. Okay, well, if I move down here, then things will be different because I'll be around a different set of people, because it's obvious that the people that I'm hanging out with, they're the problem. So I did that. I I was after my first stint with getting in trouble, getting on probation for the first time, and getting in trouble with the law. I decided, oh, the people I was hanging out with weren't good, so I moved to Florida, and that was my first taste of what recovery was: 12-step meetings and things like that, and going to outpatient and inpatient rehab and things like that. And I started to learn some different ideas and different concepts that I've become more familiar with over the years. A lot of things confused me from the very beginning. Like, one of the things they said was, you got to give it away to keep it. It's like, what does that mean? That doesn't compute for me, because my way of being was, I got to get everything I can get and keep everybody else away. That's how I win at life. But that's not a winning strategy, because when we play that way, we get back what we give. If we try to keep from everybody else and just take to ourselves, I've learned through the years that it has consequences.
Yeah.
But when we give things away, we give back to ourselves in the long run. So that's great. That's a great part of my story that I really love. The early part was very confusing for me. People said a lot of things that I just couldn't wrap my brain around. I didn't understand what they meant by some of the things that they said. That was one of them. People would say, you got to give time, because I wanted to have 20 years sober and in recovery in the first week that I was sober. I think the first time I stayed off of any kind of mood altering substance, it was about 6 months the first time. And I've had about, I would say, at least 25 to 30 relapses, at least, which I would have called relapses at that point. And now I
Okay.
just, learning adventures. I call them learning adventures now. They were necessary for me to go through those experiences.
Well, it's part of your path, right? I mean, those are the stones you're supposed to step on really to get you where you're supposed to go. And in a way it doesn't make sense, but we really do, right? Because with a lot of the guests that we've had on the show, they've talked about whether they call it a lapse or a relapse or falling off the wagon or the horse, whatever it may be. For quite a few of them, that fall actually helped them get to right where they needed to be, right? Yeah, I mean, they have fallen other times and nothing changed, but however they fell and hit their head this time completely changed their whole way of thinking and how to look at life, and that's what got them in that direction.
Mm, yeah, yeah, I say that too. It's like, had to hit open mindedness was one of the things that I was one of the spiritual principles that allowed me to see a different way. You know, you can't graft a new idea onto a closed mind. And a lot of times for me in my life, what's really holding me back from my greatest potential is an idea that I'm holding on to that I don't want to let go of. I've seen this in my past a lot. And whenever I make new discoveries about what I don't know, into the what I don't know, and I have to let go of an idea of what I think is. And
Yeah.
that's what I've experienced throughout my journey of the ups and the downs and the ups and the downs, that that's open-mindedness is so key to being able to listen, to hear something from somebody else and say, having the, oh, I know, being a know-it-all.
Yeah.
I've been a know-it-all my whole life. People would say things, and I wouldn't say it out loud that I was a know-it-all, but people would say things, and in my head, I'm going, "This person is they don't know what they're talking about." And years later, I realized those people were really had a lot of wisdom, but I wasn't allowing myself at the time to be
Yeah.
able to hear that wisdom, which is okay. Like, this is a great one. One of the first people that I interacted with said, he said, why don't you try parking in the furthest parking spot away when you go to the grocery store, or you go to the convenience store, or you go to the pharmacy? Why don't you park in the furthest spot away and just park far away and walk to the door? I was like, that is the stupidest thing I ever heard in my life. Why would anybody ever do something like that? He was inviting me to put other people first and start to think. I was like, I'm getting that Sinatra spot, the one
Yeah.
right up front, so I can get in and get out and get my stuff and get out of there before everybody else. And he was inviting me to, it's just a wise person. He was inviting me to be of service to people and really start to put other people first and see how that could benefit me in the long run, and
Yeah.
benefit everybody. It's like when we give, and that's something that's been so powerful for me, just like this opportunity that you asked me to come here and share. There would have been a time in my life have been like, I would have had a whole long story about how I'm not going to do that because and I've adopted a new way of thinking. Is when you asked me to do this and come here, it's a gift. It's an opportunity to share my journey with somebody else. Maybe somebody here will connect with what I'm saying. Maybe you felt somebody watching has felt disconnected in your life, where you didn't feel like you fit in. You didn't feel like you could say, or show up to life without some kind of outside substance to make you feel like you had the power to do that.
Yeah.
And it's taken me a lot of years to see that power comes from, we can create that power within ourselves over time, and with the right way of thinking and seeing things, we can step into life in a way that can really allow us to create and things beyond our imagination. My life right now is beyond my imagination. When I was 17, 20, and I was out there acting a fool and really creating a lot of havoc for myself and the people around me, I could have never imagined that my life would be what it is today. You know, have
Well,
two
it's
daughters. It's
oh,
just
go ahead.
amazing. No,
You
no,
have two
please.
daughters, you said?
Yeah, two daughters. I'm a coach. I work with people, coach and help them with relationship with self, so they can grow in their life and their business. Like, I could have never thought of that whenever I was in my 20s, even in my early 30s. I was this my life now would just be unimaginable, and it
Yeah.
just keeps getting gooder and gooder.
I love that. I love that. That's more better.
Yeah, it keeps getting more better, gooder and
More
gooder.
better. Yeah. I love it, man. You speak my language there, Robert. It's crazy. I'm going through a session with some friends right now. And matter of fact, we were introduced through a mutual friend, and they happen to be guests on the show as well. It's Carrick and his lovely wife Jen, and I'm doing some coaching sessions with them. And I did my first one last week, and just did another one just last night, right? And the first one basically working on bringing the little boy back out of me, right? And that's what was flashing through my mind when you were talking about your life. Is you couldn't imagine your life being where it's at right now, right? When we're kids, I mean, I don't know for you, but when I was a little kid, man, my imagination was everywhere, right? I was going to be this, or I could be that, or I was actually being this certain person, right? I mean, I grew up in the 60s, early 60s, and Daniel Boone was on TV, and I was Daniel Boone out playing, or I was the sheriff on Gunsmoke, or whatever it may be. As we start coming up into our teenage years and in our adulthood, we start letting these outside sources, and sometimes even family could even be our parents, right? And even friends. And it's not blaming them. They're doing what they were taught, right? And they're just trying to pass this on to us. But we start losing that imagination. We start forgetting who we are as individuals, that we can be whoever we want. And then we get to the point, even probably as early, even in our 20s, where we're like, well, it's too late for us now, right? And I like to, when someone says that to me, I like to bring up Colonel Sanders, Kentucky Fried Chicken. He didn't become a millionaire until he was 65. The guy was barely making it throughout the majority of his life. And at age 65, the guy became a millionaire. So it's never too late, right? And I love that you said just a little bit ago that we can be whoever it is that we want to be, because it is so true. And that's what I'm working on right now, right? I am actually now having conversations with myself, who is 7, because that's the age that came to mind when we started talking about it, which is crazy because that's the age I was diagnosed with Perthes, which is a hip disease. It's like a form of a polio, where it eats your hip socket. I had like the Forrest Gump brace on and the platform shoe, and I was teased a lot and didn't fit in, right? Because I was a crippled. I couldn't do things other kids were doing because I didn't have the capability of doing it. And it's taken me so freaking long to figure this out, Robert. I mean, seriously, it has. It's just because my mind's been in that tunnel vision. I've been looking at life through a straw all my life. And it's done doing it, right? I'm done looking through that straw. My eyes are so wide open now. And even the coaching session that I had last night, man, just the visualization of seeing my life is more better. Absolutely.
I love that.
Are you still there?
I'm still here. Can you hear
Okay,
me?
all right. I clicked on a thing real quick. So anyways, yeah,
Yeah,
I
I
wanted
love
to
that.
elaborate on that.
Yeah, I love that you're sharing that. And I love that you're sharing about your coaching experience. And this is one of the things that's been really powerful for me is having a coach and being open to say yes to having a coach, having someone in my life to give me insights of things that I can't see about myself. Help me to look in the direction of saying yes to having a coach for me was one of the most powerful things that I ever said yes to. It it's somebody there that helps me to see the possibilities when I can't see it. When I'm all wrapped up in, well, you don't understand, this thing is happening outside of me and this is what the problem is. They get to ask me questions to direct me to, is that really true, or is there something I can do about it? And I love that about coaching. That's what I love about being a coach. And that's what I love about having a coach, because those are the things that I didn't do whenever I was using that outside motivator to try to change the way that I am on the inside. And my life is exactly the opposite now. It's like, what can I do? What can I do? Nothing from the outside. Whatever the outside world comes and says to me that reports everything is terrible and my kids are screaming and my outside is smoggy and all these terrible things are happening around me. Okay, so what, I could spend a lot of time worrying and getting all jammed up in my mind about things that there's nothing I can do about. And I've spent a lot of time. Maybe you've spent a lot of time doing that too, right? How many
Yeah.
of us have spent a lot of time doing that? And coaching helps us to really take a look at that, ask us the questions of what can I do? Because there are things I can do, and why I'm worried about the 75,000 million trillion things that I can't do. There's a lot of things that I can do. And when I start looking towards the possibility of what can I do instead of what did they do wrong and why are they to blame, I can really start to see, wow, there are things I can do. There are a lot of opportunities that I'm missing because my thinking is pointed in the direction of what are they doing wrong. Politics is a great example. We start to say they're not doing this and this and this right. Okay, well, maybe they're not, but what can I do? It's like that question. And that's what I love about what you were sharing about having a coach. Is like they help us get in the vision of what we can do, what's the
Yeah,
possibility for you. And I love that. And that's been so great. And that's what people over the years, my mentors, people that I've seen in 12-step meetings, they're sharing a vision. And this is another piece of from where I was to where I am, having people around me that are where I want to go is so important, right?
absolutely.
Having people
Yes.
around me that are, and sometimes people in the meetings, I've seen this before, where there's a lot of people out there that are going to tell you what you should do, and they're just full of, what, I won't, they're full of do. They're
And
trying to
don't
tell
don't
you
shoot
what you're
on me, right?
exactly. They're putting their shoulds on us, just like some of our peers and parents did when we were growing up.
Hmm.
They put those shoulds. Oh, well, you should do this and you can't do that and you shouldn't do this, and that was their shoulds. And there's a lot of people out there, when we start to say yes and we commit to, I'm gonna make my life better without using, no matter what. And when we commit to that, we can have a lot of people out there to tell us, well, this is the way you have to do it. And those people are full of dude, and that's okay. Sometimes early on, it's hard to see that. And we think, well, this person's been clean 20 years, or this person hasn't used in 20 years, so they know. But that's not the only way. We get to decide. And that's one of the things too that has come about in my life, is realizing that the internal compass is within each one of us. There's not one person out there that can tell me this is the way you got to do it. No, no, you don't get to tell me that. Nobody does. I get to make that choice for me.
Yeah.
There may be some models, there may be some frameworks that are really powerful. And how does that resonate for me? I have to be true to myself. I don't have to be, I get to be true to myself. I get to be around people who are where I want to go. I get to say yes to opportunities like this.
Yeah. And again, going back to the coaching, it is really nice to have someone be there to help. Because I know, I don't know if it's like this with all coaches, at least the two that I'm working with, they start digging deep, right? And I'm sure you do the same thing. You dig deep to find out what's internal, right? What's causing you to look at life this way. And I love that not once they ever said I did anything wrong,
Mm.
right? They're like, hey, this is just how it's been programmed in you, right? Not any fault of anyone. It's just this is how it's been programmed. Let's change that program, right? It's just like picking up the remote control and changing the station. It's like unplugging a vacuum out of a bad outlet and plugging it into a good outlet. And that's what I love about what I'm going through right now with my coaching is they're they're allowing me to use my mind. They're not telling me where I need to go. They're not telling me how to go about things. I guess kind of in a way they are. However, they're allowing me to dig down deep and find these emotions and going, okay, this is what we can do to help reprogram that, right? And however it's me, I still have to do the work. They're just kind of giving me that path, right? They're saying you can continue going down this path that you're going down, which how far has it gotten you so far?
Mhm.
Or you can continue to go down this one and enjoy the journey and see. And yes, there's going to be some bumps, there's going to be some rocks, there's going to be some hurdles because I've lived my life a certain way for so long. And it's not going to happen overnight, like what you said earlier. You wanted 20 years of sobriety tomorrow, and
Right.
it's not going to happen because where we are at in our life, it didn't happen yesterday. it's taken that journey, that time, and now we're changing directions, we're changing sides, and it's going to take us a little bit of time to go the direction we want to go. However, when we have somebody like yourself who is a coach and who has studied and learned and knows the direction and how to mold things, we do get there a little quicker than if we did it by ourselves, right? We don't have as many boulders to climb over because they're teaching us how to go around them in a safe way.
Mm, I love that. And what I'm hearing when you're saying that is the folks that you're working with, a couple that you're working with are holding a space of complete non-judgment and just helping you to evaluate what's working and what's not working, so you can look at it and say, is this really working?
Yeah,
And that's such a powerful piece. And there's a quote out there: the highest form of love is to be able to have evaluation without judgment. The
I
highest
love
form
that.
of love is to be able to have evaluation without judgment, so we can look, is this really working for me? Like, this is a great example. There's a lot of people out there that are saying I'm trying to help. Is what you're doing really helpful?
Yeah,
Because I see this time and time in my own life. There's things that I tell myself that I'm being helpful, I'm trying to be helpful, but is it really being helpful? So
yeah,
sometimes it can be an enabling process. Sometimes, like, whenever my family used to give me money, I'd be like, oh, come on, I didn't have a job, I was in the hole. I had all these bills and they're still giving me money that I was spending on. Guess what? Was I spending all my bills? No, I wasn't spending all my bills, but they were still giving me money, which was okay. I was all happy about it at the time. Yeah. But that could have been considered not helping at that time. And
yeah,
there's lots of ways to look at it, but I love when you're sharing that, because evaluation, when we can learn how to evaluate our own actions, I'm sent speaking for me, when I can look at my action and say, is this helpful? And if it's not, then I get to commit to something else. I love
yeah.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, one of my coworkers and I, we get into some pretty deep conversation. He's in long-term recovery, and he's an electrician. And I keep telling him, I'm like, you need to hang up that electrical belt, buddy, and you need to get into some coaching because this guy's amazing, right? And we were talking about looking yourself in the mirror, look at the message in the mirror. And when he said that, that really resonated with me, really deep. When you are looking at yourself in your eyes, in your own eyes, and digging deep, going deep inside yourself, holy cow. I mean, there's been days and just short periods of time, but I'm looking at myself in the mirror and going deep, and I can literally see myself moving the intestines out of the way and moving my lungs off to the side, because I'm digging deep. I want to
You
I
are
want to
going
find
deep.
that answer, right? I want
Mhm.
to figure out where I'm going, and I want to know that I'm going the right direction. And having someone to talk to, whether it's a coach or someone who has gone through it themselves, right? It's just really quick I want to stay on that subject because if not, sometimes my mind goes off and I'll lose it. You know, to have that, because there's a few friends, just few, I can count them all on one hand, that I will go deep with, right? That I'm saying, okay, this is what's going on in my life. It's not that I'm looking for direction. It's not that I'm lost. I know where I want to go. I'm asking someone, whether it's my coaches or whether it's my coworker, am I going about this the right way? Right? Is there something I'm missing? And it doesn't mean that I don't have a clue who I am as an individual, because I do. For the first time in my freaking life, I know who I am. And I'm proud of who I am now. I've worked my ass off for 14 years to get to where I'm at today. However, I'm going to continue to learn. I'm not staying because I will not go stagnant at all. Because once I do, I'm going to be left way behind. I'm going to be back in that puddle of shit again, you know? So I like to ask people at times, even like, am I heading the right direction? This is how I'm feeling. This is how I look at it. And there's sometimes I look at it right. They're like, you're looking at it. Yep, you're heading in the right direction. Oh my gosh, that makes me feel so good, right? And there's other times, I'm sure you get this, Robert, as a coach, where you start getting that feeling that there's a little bit of uncomfortableness there. And you're wondering, gosh, is this really right or is it not? Who else can you go to? If you can't figure it out with inside, you go to someone like yourself as a coach or someone that you really trust who has been on that same journey and go, okay, I'm running into some obstacles here. What can I do different? And it's crazy because the majority of the time when they give me their answer, if I am running into obstacles, it is so freaking obvious.
Mm-hmm.
It's obvious. However,
Right.
we've got our blinders on, right? Because we're so focused on that freaking rock in the middle of our path instead of looking at all these different ways we could go. It's crazy. So it's a blessing. And there's nothing wrong with having a therapist. There's nothing wrong with having a coach because even some of the top athletes in the world have a coach. And there's some of the most top athletes, actors, some of the best actors and actresses out there have coaches still to this day, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's and that's what I was speaking to earlier is that open-mindedness. There was a time in my life where I'd have been like, Coach, I don't need a dang coach, and my life was falling apart. You know, my relationships were completely terrible. I That it was all their fault, and life was really dismal, and I didn't have a whole lot of joy in my life. And there's still moments like that where I can wake up in the morning. This morning I woke up at 4 and I thought, I don't really want to get up. Not every morning am I like, hey, let's go. You know, I woke up and I laid in bed for a while and my thought process was really about self-evaluation in a good way, not like you're terrible like it used to be, like this. Oh, oh, oh. That's
Yeah.
what it used to be like. Every morning was just grab myself by the throat and start to punch myself in the head with my thinking about how terrible and how horrible everything was going to be. And if you're going through that, I understand that. And I would beat myself up for beating myself up for beating myself up. I don't know if anybody out there can relate to that, but I would say, "Oh, you're such a dummy. You did that." And then I would hit myself with that thought. And they'd be like, "There you go again, telling yourself how stupid you are. Way to go, dummy." And that was like a never-ending cycle. And that's what my life was like. And no wonder I used to try to get rid of that. And there are other ways that we can deal with those things and learn how to step into those things. And I love that you're speaking towards coaching. And we are going to fall down. I mean, how many times in my life um, have I had a slip, so to speak, whatever? So many, 20, maybe 30. I don't know. It's been a
Yeah.
lot. And I came to a place in my life where I realized I made a commitment. I used to think using drinking was the answer because that was the only answer I ever found to the madness in my mind. And I thought that was the answer. And what I came to realize is it's only the answer. And if I let it be the only answer, there are other answers out there. There are other things that can help to meditation was one of the things that people suggested early on. I was like, I'm not a monk. I'm not going to do that. That's stupid. Contempt prior to investigation. You know, that was my judgment of something that I had never done. Well, I would take pills if I never knew what they were. Why wouldn't I try meditation? Right? Why wouldn't I try meditation that I if I didn't know what it did? And you know, I've tried some of these practices, breathing. Breathing is so powerful in any moment right now for the listeners. If you're feeling stressed, you can just take a moment and just put your feet on the floor, put your hands on your lap, and just put your feet, get grounded, and just breathe through your nose and just let it all go for just 1 second. Just let it go and just focus on your breath for just that 1 second. You can have that peace even if it's just for 1 second, even if it's just for 2 seconds. Maybe it's not going to last, no, but you can do that again in another 10 seconds if you want.
Yeah.
You can you can be with that breath and really get connected to that. Just get connected with what's here right now, because in the head, we get in our minds, I know it can go crazy.
Well, yeah, like you said, it really does help, right? I mean, I had a gentleman out of Texas who talks about taking 10 deep breaths, really going down in the abdomen and coming up and exhaling and doing it 10 times. It's the first thing he does every morning. And he says it's amazing what that will do for the beginning of your day. And even the meditation, I started doing meditation quite a few years ago, and then got to where it was hit and miss, and then it got to where I just wasn't doing it anymore. And I finally brought it back about 3 weeks ago. And I am damn and determined I will not miss it. And I'm
Yeah,
only
good
doing
for you.
8 to 9 minutes, right? That's all I'm doing right now,
That's
eight to
perfect.
nine
That's a
minutes, which is good
that's
with me.
amazing.
I put on my headphones, I put on some brainwave entrainment music. I take my deep breaths, 3 of them. I sit there. I thought, and for our listeners, I thought meditation was all about clearing your mind completely. We cannot clear our mind completely. Anyway, that's my belief. Our mind's going to be going constantly. However, it's that consciousness, right? Being able to focus on, okay, the thought that just came in, that's not useful. Let's shift it. Let's shift on something that's more useful in my life, that's on a more of a positive path, right? And that's how I'm training my mind. I'm really working harder on just allowing life to happen the way it's happening without controlling it. Because guys, I tell you what, if any of our listeners out there are trying to control your life, just stop, because you're not going to be able to control it. I don't think we can't control something that's out of our hands. I really do believe that we have to open our minds and just allow things to go the way that they're going and trust in the divine, really. And I don't know, maybe I'm looking at it the wrong way, Robert. It's just that for me, my higher power is God. And ever since I've just kind of said, okay, what's that song, Carrie Underwood, Jesus Take the Wheel? I just want to stay in my lane, and I'm doing my best. And sometimes I find myself drifting off. And it seems like as soon as I do, life starts going to crap again. And I have to really work to get myself back in my lane, just focus on what I need in my life. And it seems like when I do, things fall into place a lot better. And
Yeah,
having a coach like yourself helps us do that.
it does. It keeps well, I know because I have a coach, and it keeps my focus on the possibility and learning how to accept what is. That's when I've lost all my power in life every time a situation comes up. And I lose my power when I argue with what is. When I argue with whatever comes to me, maybe my daughter decides she's going to fill up the sink with suds and bubbles and it's overflowing. I'm like, no, don't do that. Guess what my daughter does? She's like, oh, I'll say, don't stop. And she doesn't stop. She listens very well. Don't stop. I got it, Dad. Don't stop.
Don't
You
stop.
said don't, and then you said stop. Don't stop. Okay, Dad, I'm going to keep doing it. So, when we argue with what is, I found this in my own life, and you can take a look, my listeners can take a look in their own life and see when you argue with what is that suffering? Anytime something is and we say it shouldn't be, we suffer. And that's okay, because that's there to help us to recognize this is what is. We can say, don't do this, you shouldn't do that, and we can fight everything in our power to make it stop. And sometimes we may take a look at it and see that through that we sometimes we're giving it energy, and that's
Yeah.
okay too. That's okay too. Be willing to take a look, and acceptance isn't, and this is huge, and I want people to hear this. Acceptance isn't condoning, it's not supporting that thing. When we accept something as it is, we can come from a place of peace, and we can come to that with a place of, hey, I this is what is, and I would prefer this. And that's when I work with when I work with clients, one of the things that we work on, and when my coach works with me on things, it's really getting to that place of acceptance, accepting ourselves, accepting the outside world just the way it shows up. Okay, this is what we have to deal with. Okay, I accept that. Here it is. Now what? Now what do you want to do with that? What's your vision with what is? And then from that place, we get to create something new. But as long as we're fighting what is, there we don't have the energy. Search your own life to see if this is true. When you fight what is, do you have the energy to be able to create something new? Or are you using all your energy to push what is away and try
Yeah.
to make what is not true? And I think from we've been trained as little kids and from our parents, don't stop. I do it to my daughter, right? And we're trained to look at the things we don't want and try to push them away. And that doesn't work, and that's okay. We get to take a look at that and see, is this working or is this not working? We get to take a look at it and see, is it working? And I do it. I still do it in my own life. My daughter's going to come home later and she'll do something, and I'm going to think, don't do that, because because I'm good. I'm a great person. Because I listened to my past mentors and parents and people that told me that's how you go about life. You say, don't stop. You can't do that. Life shouldn't happen this way. We have to avoid what's happening and try to create life from avoidance. And I've found that creates connection to what we don't want, and keeps
Yeah.
us stuck, which is okay.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, I came from manufacturing. It's like putting a red wire against a black wire, right? Instead of matching them, it's not going to work. And it delays the process, right? The more you fight it, it's delaying the process in whichever direction you're supposed to go. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah. And question before we go into strength, because I'd like to talk to you about the strength and the self reflection of how you got to where you're at today. How often do you have people come in to work with you? And let's say you've had maybe 3 or 4 sessions with them already. How many people do you see starting to step backwards because of outside influences? Let's say I'm working with you, Robert, and I'm really enjoying where my life's going. And then I sit and I talk to a friend, and they're like, "Oh, you're working with a coach?" Yeah, I worked with a coach once, or I heard someone did this once and all it did was mess them up and it took them down a wrong path, or this is what ended up happening to them. Do you ever have clients allow the outside sources to get in the way of the direction that they're going? Because again, that would be like me being on the other side of addiction, talking to someone who's in long-term recovery or who's just starting their recovery, telling them how they need to go about their recovery journey when I don't have a clue about it, right? It's just because of I saw someone else or this happened to someone else, and I'm using that as my directions. Do you get that from clients?
I see that in myself, the outside world, and I want to be clear. In my world, the way that I'm adopting to see the world is that it's not the outside experience that creates my world. It's how I respond and what my thoughts are about the outside experience. Because maybe there's one experience and you and I will be there for the experience, say a football game, for example. Maybe you're for, what's your favorite football team?
The Dolphins.
The Dolphins. So, sorry for anybody who is against the Dolphins out there. And say I'm for. I don't know if this works because I don't know a whole lot about sports, but the Steelers and Dolphins, do they play each other sometimes?
No,
Okay, what would be a team that would be the
different
opposite?
divisions.
Okay,
I would say like Buffalo, that's a division.
okay, so Buffalo would play
Miami.
the Dolphins.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's say Miami and Buffalo are playing, and we're watching the game, and I'm for Buffalo, and you're obviously for the Miami Dolphins. we're both experiencing the same thing. But our story of that, say the Dolphins make a touchdown, what do you how do you think I'm going to be feeling?
Yeah.
I'm going to be like,
Yeah.
and you're
Right.
going to be like, yay, right? Because that's the story that we both have of what's happening. Vice versa. Uh, the Buffalo Bills make a touchdown, and it's the last quarter, and it's right at the very end, and they win the game. How am I going to be feeling, and how are you going to be feeling? It's
Right.
not the event that creates the emotion or the story within us. It's the thoughts that we have attached to that. So that's a very important distinction when we step into that in every area of our life. And that's what I invite my clients to do, is to, when they start to get into that, hey, this outside thing's happening and that's why I'm feeling, that's why I'm not doing what I'm doing. I like to reel it back into, hey, is that really true, or is it you're more committed to looking at it that way than it is of what you can do about it? So I think that happens with all of us because that's how we've been trained in the world is, oh yeah, well, I feel like crap. Well, why do you feel like crap? Because I lost my job, because it's raining outside, because these people did this stuff. But is that really true? Because sometimes, like COVID was a good example. For some people, that was the worst thing that ever happened, and for some people, it was the greatest opportunity for them to do things. It's there's always a different way of seeing
Yeah.
things, and that's one of the gifts. What you were sharing earlier is open mindedness to be willing to look at life in that way, which is unreasonably take an unreasonable amount of ownership and responsibility for our lives, which a lot of people out there aren't doing. So there's the report of the people on the outside is going to come to us and say, hey man, everything's terrible because the prices are going up and all this stuff with the environment, and this person's in office, and there's going to be a lot of people who are going to speak to that. So you can always get shared experience and feel connection with people through complaining. And it really takes a lot for people to say yes to, I want to create my life regardless of what the outside world says. I want to create my life powerfully, exactly the way I want it, regardless of what the outside world says,
Yeah.
regardless if the prices go up, regardless if they nuke here this place or this place blows up or they do this or that. I want to tap into the power to create my life whatever way I want it to be, because I decided, regardless of what the outside world's doing. And that's what, for me, that's the invitation that coaching gives to each person if they're ready to take that on. People don't need a coach, but if they said yes to a coach, they might see so many possibilities to create their life powerfully that they're not seeing right now. But
Yeah.
first you have to be willing to, that's a big investment. I've invested $10,000 in my personal development this year for me, and coaching and programs and the things that I've said yes to. And it has changed my life. Am I a millionaire? No, I'm not a millionaire.
Yeah.
Am I making six figures right now? No, I'm not. But the thing is, I'm seeing the opportunity to create my life powerfully in so many areas that I invite so many people to do that because it's such a gift. I wouldn't be here right now sharing this if I didn't say yes to that.
Right.
And I appreciate this opportunity.
Absolutely. And again, Robert, and correct me if I'm wrong, you wouldn't be here also if it wasn't for your past, right? I mean,
Oh,
your journey
exactly.
that you took is what put you here. And by saying that, what finally opened your eyes? What the majority of the guests that I've had on my show had to dig down deep, right? Something one day woke them up and they dug down as deep as they could go and figured out this is not going to be me anymore. And they had to muster up, even just saying mustered up, just a mustard seed of strength and faith and believing in themselves. And a mustard seed is very, very tiny to just get them to go forward. What was that for you?
That's a great question. I can't say it was the one thing. It was just continuing to say yes until it dropped. I started when I was 17, and I just kept I kept trying and kept working and kept showing up to meetings and asking people, what can I do? And not listening, not taking the advice, and continuing to show up. And it's a continuous process. It's a mountain without a top. Like what you said, I'm going to continue to say yes to growth, because if that's been the times in my past whenever I have fallen backwards, is whenever I rest on my laurels. So when I stopped doing the work, just like what you said, this was one of the big things for me. When I stopped doing the work, that was when I went back into the lapse of blaming the outside for what was happening on the inside and wanting to run away. Um, so it's like just continuing to say yes. There's been different moments in my life whenever I've experienced those. I read The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. That was a game changer for me. I
It's a good book.
Amazing. I read The Ultimate Coach book. That was another. Said yes. I left a marriage of a relationship of over 15 years, and we were married for almost 8 years. That was a moment. There were a lot of those moments over the my lifetime up till this point, and there's going to be more where
Yeah.
those moments where it just something clicks, and you get to, it's like a video game. You're playing and you're trying to beat that level,
Yeah.
and you always respawn at that. I was like, oh, okay, I'm going to go back to here. So you keep trying and working and working to get to the next. And I don't like the idea of levels, because I found in my life when I felt less than everybody else, and there's been times in my life when I felt better than everybody else. And there's a problem with that. It's okay. There's no judgment around it. And I found that it always leads to someday, some way, I'm going to end up on the bottom. And it's all good when I'm on the top, right? But with that way of thinking, the top and bottom thinking, the
Yeah.
better and
Yeah.
worse, I'm always going to end up as the worst sooner or later. So that thinking I found doesn't work for me. It's like finding the middle ground. That middle ground has been very powerful for me in recovery, to say being okay with what is. That's the middle ground for me. It's not, you're not better than me, you're not worse than me. This is what it is. And let's figure out how we can be with what is right now, right in this moment.
Yeah. I love that. And I'm going through that right now with myself, right? About, I don't know, I don't know how long ago I finally said, I mean, I've just thrown in the towel, right? I'm breaking up a relationship of 18 years.
Mm.
It's just, I've held off and I've held off and I've held off. And a lot of it's been the fear, right? The age that I'm at. I mean, if I was 20s, 30s, maybe even in my 40s, it would be exciting. But, being 60 and saying I'm done and going out there being single again, it's kind of scary in a way, and I'm doing my best not to let it fear, but, you know, um, anyway, yeah, so I'm throwing in a towel, and I like to use it as chapters, not levels, right?
I
Because
love
I'm
that.
with you on that. I
I
don't
love
care
that.
for the level thing. So here I am, a new chapter. I open it up, it's chapter 120, and the page is blank. How do I want this chapter to go? Right? Can I go back and read some of my other chapters and go, holy crap, I wrote this one completely wrong, right? I really made a mess of this chapter of my life. I got a little better in the next chapter. Where is this chapter now going to take me? And what I have learned now, after 14 years of working on myself, I got this pen and I got this blank piece of paper. I can write it however the hell I want to write it. Not meaning I'm not going to run out of ink, or I'm not going to break the lead while I'm writing, because that's life, right? It's going to throw obstacles in your way. However, what choices do I make to go around these obstacles? Am I going to just let it be and just let it go? And look at the lesson. I mean, I even think they talk about that in the Ultimate Coach book, right? What's the lesson behind it? Right? I think Steve Hardison shares a story of him breaking down in the middle of the desert in Arizona, and he's excited for the tow truck to come. Why? Because he gets to meet a new person, right? Who knows
Mhm.
what this person can do for it, or who knows what's going to happen, the connection that can be made. So instead of looking at the bad part of it, look at the good part of it. Again, that message in the mirror, and look at the lesson behind everything. And that's something I'm really, really working on right now, is what is the lesson behind everything that's going on in my life? Because either we are bringing it on to ourselves, we're admitting it, or we're putting out there in the universe, or maybe it's something that's just coming into our life to get us to wake up a little bit, right? And that light bulb goes off and go, okay, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. I'm not looking at it the right way. This is the direction I need to go.
Yeah, I love that. I love the analogy of the book, writing the book and the chapters.
Yeah.
Very powerful. Very powerful.
So going back, self-reflection, man, you've had a journey, right? And I think you said this earlier. You would have never thought you'd be where you're at today. And if someone asked me that question 4 years ago, Al, do you think that you'd be doing talks at recovery centers, and you're thinking about writing a book? I've been working on a TED Talks. I'm doing a podcast. If someone would have asked me that, I'm like, you've got your head so far up your backside that, yeah, you don't even see the daylight, right? Now here I am in it. I've connected the dots backwards. I realize my whole journey has led me right here to this moment right now. And I'm so grateful for it. And I'm not ashamed to say, I'm still barely making it, right? I'm still barely making it. However, my vision, and now also the help with working with a coach, I see it, I taste it, I feel it. I mean, life is going to change for me very quickly here.
I love that. I love that. And I'm in the same boat. I love that. I think so many people, so many of us are in that boat. And the one thing that you asked me a question, what would I want people to really get from what I'm sharing today, take
Yeah,
away
yeah.
from this
Well,
today?
yeah, absolutely.
What I would really want people to get is it, you may feel disconnected, you may feel like you don't fit in, you may feel like life is falling apart. I've been there. I might be there again next week. We're all going through the same thing. All the things that I did to figure out, I wanted to know what was wrong with me because I thought for years and years and years that there was something wrong with me. And I did hypnotherapy certificates. I did 13 Fred Pryor seminars on all kinds of different topics, empathetic listening, communication, leadership, all these things. I got an NLP certificate. I did all these things because I wanted to figure out what's wrong with me. What is wrong with me? And through all that, I finally found the answer. And it wasn't this profound answer that I thought it was going to be. The answer was there's nothing wrong with me or anybody else. We're all going through the same thing, whether we're people who say we're addicts because we use drugs or we're people who, whatever, it doesn't matter. We're all the same. We're all going through this feeling connected for a while and then disconnected. We're going in this back and forth cycle. Doesn't matter who it is, we're all going through that. And if we commit, when we commit, we make the choice to show up the way that we want to show up, to be the person, we're to be the person that we really want to be, and the person that we know who we really are deep down inside, then life starts to get better
Yeah, yeah.
from that
Amen.
place. From a choice. It's a choice. That's not, we get to choose. And you get to choose in this moment. Who do I want to be in this moment? Do you want to be more loving? Be more loving. Do you want to be forgiving? It's a practice. Peace is a practice. If I sat down every day and I just got grounded and did the breathing in and out through the nose and I focus on that, I can find a sense of peace in this moment. Whenever I lose that and I get up here and start grinding away with the ideas of what is and what should be and what shouldn't be and what couldn't be, then that's whenever I get off base. Just stopping for 1 minute and just breathing. Just stop for 1 minute and breathe. And give yourself the gift of peace, even if it's just for 1 second.
Yeah, that is so true. And thank you for sharing that, because yeah, that's up here in my eyes. You know, I like to share with people too when someone says that they're good, right? I took a seminar a couple of years ago, and gentleman teaching the seminar says, you know, when you ask somebody how you doing today and they say good is heart level, right? You're only here. If you say I'm doing well, you're above heart level, right? So now when someone asks me, how are you doing today? It's like, I'm doing well, or I'm doing great, right? Because I want to be above heart level. I want my vibration to be as high as possible.
Mm.
Because again, the way I see it, if it's as high as possible, I'm helping another individual. My energy will emit to them, right? And it may help them, right? And it just continues to flow. It's that ripple effect. They're going to start passing it on to someone. And working on ourselves is a huge investment. It really is. And you can even do it without, even if things are tight, there's still so much you can do on your own, right? And there are still people out there who are willing to help you because they want to see you grow, right? Because it's someone did that for them and helped them at least get their run started, right? It got them standing up. And I like to use the analogy as a baby, right? When we're a baby and we're learning how to crawl, right? How many times do we fall and bump our chin off the floor when we're trying to crawl, or we just sit there and wiggle back and forth, but we don't move a limb, right? Pretty soon we're crawling everywhere. Same with walking. I mean, gosh, as humans, can you imagine how far we could take our life if we fall and we just stood back up and still went and did it again, like with your recovery and a lot of other people in recovery, right? I mean, as babies, how many times did we fall? Who could have counted when we were learning how to walk? We may have hit our head on a coffee table or our chin, or who knows? I mean, I know my daughters cut their lips a couple times, and bounce their chin off coffee, even though you're trying to get to them, but they'd cry, but hell, within 30 seconds, they were doing their best to do the same thing again, grab the coffee table and pull themselves up to try to walk again, right? But as us grown ups and we become adults, we're so quick to throw in the towel, so quick to just say, this isn't going to work for me. Well, how the hell do you know it's not going to work for you unless you put forth the effort?
I love that. And to piggyback on that about every coach that I know, you can meet with, they will meet with you two, three, four, even four times without any kind of payment. The
Yeah.
great coaches out there will help you and allow you to experience what coaching is like. This is what I found in my world, that the great coaches out there will meet with you and they'll really see how they can help you without charging you to meet. It's a lot of, it's, coaching is a very different realm. I do that with people when somebody reaches out to me and they have a challenge. I really meet with them and see, can I really help this person? And if I can, how can I help them? And if I can't, I refer them to a resource or someone who can.
Yeah.
And that's a great thing that I love about coaching too, is there's so many free resources that you could, I could give you a list of 10 coaches that you could connect with that would give you free time, their free time, that would connect with you and help you out massively. I know because I've done it and they have helped me amazingly. There's so many great coaches out there. I love that you're sharing that. And it is just keep going. Just keep going. And nobody's arrived. Nobody has arrived. We all have to just keep going. We're all just picking ourselves back up. Tomorrow
Yep.
morning, I'll probably lay in bed and say, maybe I'll say, I don't want to get up right now, and maybe I'll get right up. But either way, it's okay.
Yeah.
I get to lay in bed if I want. One more thing is, judgment is one of the things, that's what my experience has given me, is I don't judge people the way that a lot of people do, that I used to, because I've been through it. Somebody comes to me and says, well, I did this crazy thing and they tell me what it is, I kind of laugh a lot because I'm like, well, I'm not going to tell them what I did, all these things that I did in the past, right? They come to me and say, I did this crazy thing and I can't believe I did it and blah blah blah. And they tell me and I'm like, oh, that's okay. Don't worry. I won't tell you my past. And sometimes I do. But yeah, that's a gift in the past. We have that because people can come to us and say, hey, I did this thing, and we can say, yeah, me too. It's okay.
Yeah,
Doesn't
I love
define
it.
who you are. Yeah, it doesn't define who you are.
Thank
Doesn't
you
have
for
to.
sharing that, because you're right. It doesn't define who you are. Absolutely. It's our head that defines us, right? Our ego.
It can. And
Yeah.
that's what when you were sharing up here, I like to a lot of times up here is where I get my challenges when I'm in between my ears. So then dropping down to here sometimes can be really helpful when I breathe and I drop down to here. And I think it does raise the vibration up. And sometimes being up here, I've found is the place where I think the answers are here. I'm going to find some way to control. But when I let go of that and just allow myself to be okay with what is, just let go of the thoughts that I have about it, then I can find a space of peace. And sometimes from that place, many times from that place, the answer shows itself. The way shows itself when we allow ourselves to step into that peace.
Yeah. I love it. Perfect. Robert, man, this has been a great show, and yeah, I'm kind of biased because they're all great shows, but this was really some great information that you shared. And thank you for being vulnerable and opening up and sharing a little bit about your past and where you're at today, and the people that you're helping, right? Because I like to look at it as and this isn't religion, this is spiritual. I like to look at it as those in long-term recovery. They're the angels that's walking the earth, because they're the ones putting their hands out, helping other individuals get through their trials, right? Because we can't do it alone. I mean, I've tried for years and all I've done is mess things up. We cannot do it alone. We have to have people in our ring, right? I mean, even a boxer, right? Or someone that plays golf or bowling or those individual sports, right? Where it's you against whatever, the course, or maybe one other person. There's still a plethora of people that surround them to help them get to that point. So we all need help, because doing it alone is not, I think it's just impossible. With that said, is there anything else you'd like to share with our listeners before we sign off?
Well, I just want to share with you, Al. Thank you so much for inviting me. It's a gift and honor to be able to be here and speak. And I feel complete. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to do this. And thanks for what you do.
Uh,
Very meaningful. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate your kind words. And again, thank you for what you do. And I hope we can stay in touch. And, who knows where things will go. I've made so many amazing relationships out of doing this podcast. And, some of us are even talking about doing things here in the near future together if it's possible. So you never know. One last thing, someone is interested in working with you. How do they find you?
They can just send me go if you have Facebook, you can go on Facebook and just look up Robert Twine and you'll see my beautiful smiling face on the front of that. And then if you don't have that, you can send a message to restore my relationship at gmail.com.
Okay.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, guys, again, thank you for all your love, all your support. We really appreciate all you guys, all our sponsors, our guests, our listeners. Guys, again, we couldn't do it without you. You guys are the ones that are making this possible. This is just a platform for people to come on and share what they want to share. And that's what I love about doing this show. So, again, thank you all. And remember this: addiction is giving up everything for one thing, and recovery is giving up one thing for everything. We're out.